The darkness of the ocean seemed to swallow them whole as the group of divers descended deeper into the uncharted waters. The water pressure pushed against their bodies like a heavy hand, and the light from their headlamps barely penetrated the black abyss surrounding them. The ocean was vast and infinite, but tonight they were here for a reason, to uncover what no one had ever seen before. This had been the dream of Dr. Emilia Jacobs, the leader of the group. A renowned marine archaeologist, she had spent years studying ancient civilizations and believed there was something buried deep beneath the surface. No one else had dared to go this far, but with the help of her team, she would be the first to make the discovery. It was her obsession, her singular focus. The group consisted of 5 divers: Dr. Jacobs, a young marine biologist named Ethan, a seasoned diver named Marco, and 2 tech specialists, Laura and Sarah. They had been preparing for months, meticulously planning every detail of the dive. They had no idea what they would find down there, but they all had a sense of excitement mixed with trepidation. The ocean, after all, held countless secrets, most of which were best left untouched. "All right, team, we're entering the cave system now." Dr. Jacobs's voice crackled through their radios, steady and calm. "Stay close. No one gets separated." The team nodded, each of them adjusting their dive masks and checking their equipment. The water was cold, and the visibility was poor, but they had done their due diligence. Their equipment was state-of-the-art, their training flawless. This wasn't the first deep dive for any of them, but something about this one felt different. The air was thick with tension. As they swam deeper into the cave system, the walls of the tunnel began to narrow, forcing them to maneuver carefully. The cave floor was uneven, with jagged rocks protruding from every angle. The farther they went, the darker it became. Dr. Jacobs's heart raced with anticipation. This was where it would all happen. This was where they would find the evidence that could change the course of history. Then they saw it. At first, it was a faint glow, soft and eerie. It flickered from within a narrow crevice ahead, just beyond the reach of their lights. Marco gestured toward it with a slow, deliberate movement, signaling the others to follow. They swam forward, the water growing colder the deeper they went. The glow intensified, and soon, the shape of something ancient came into view. It was a large, stone doorway, carved with intricate symbols. The symbols were unlike anything Dr. Jacobs had ever seen. They seemed to pulse with a faint energy, as if alive. "This is it," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. "This is what we've been looking for." The door was covered in seaweed and coral, the remnants of centuries of neglect, but as Dr. Jacobs reached out to touch it, the door creaked open with an unsettling groan. The team exchanged nervous glances, but none of them voiced their hesitation. They had come this far, and they weren't turning back now. As they swam into the chamber beyond, their lights illuminated the room, revealing the walls covered in more symbols, some of which seemed to shimmer faintly. In the center of the room lay an altar, and on the altar, a strange object, an orb, pulsing with a dark, unnatural light. "This is incredible," Dr. Jacobs murmured, her voice barely audible. She reached out to touch the orb, and as her fingers brushed its surface, a cold electric shock ran through her body. She recoiled, but the orb's glow intensified, casting long shadows across the chamber. The others watched in stunned silence, but then Laura noticed something strange in the corner of the room. A dark shape, barely visible in the dim light. She froze, her heart racing. "What is that?" Everyone turned toward the shadowy figure, and as their lights shone on it, they realized it was a statue. No, not a statue. A creature, crouching on all fours. Its skin was a dull, mottled gray, with deep grooves and ridges running down its body. Its eyes were wide, empty sockets, but they seemed to bore into them, as if they were aware of their presence. Marco's hand trembled on his flashlight. That doesn't look like anything from this world." Dr. Jacobs, despite the unease in her chest, took a step closer to the altar, her curiosity outweighing the creeping fear. "It's an ancient relic," she said, trying to reassure herself. This must be a relic of the civilization that once lived here. But as soon as the words left her mouth, there was a deep rumble, a sound like the ocean groaning. The ground beneath them trembled, and the water grew colder, almost freezing. The creature's eyes, though empty, seemed to glow faintly. Then, as if waking from a centuries-long slumber, the creature's jaw opened, revealing rows of sharp, serrated teeth. A guttural growl echoed from deep within its throat. Before anyone could react, it lunged. Panic erupted. The divers scattered, swimming in different directions as the creature's claws slashed through the water with inhuman speed. Mako's light went out first, and a scream echoed through the cave. Then Laura was next, her terrified face lit by the dim glow of the orb as she disappeared into the dark. "We need to get out of here," Ethan shouted, but his voice was drowned out by the roar of the creature and the sound of water crashing against the cave walls. Dr. Jacobs's heart pounded in her chest as she swam frantically toward the exit, but the passage had narrowed further. The creature was relentless, its claws scraping against the stone, its growls vibrating in their bones. It was clear that the creature was no longer trapped. It had been waiting for them, waiting to be freed. Sarah screamed, her oxygen tank malfunctioning, and she was pulled under by the creature's strong, gnarled hand. Dr. Jacobs and Ethan were the last to make it to the cave entrance, but as they reached it, they saw the creature emerging from the depths, its form towering over them. Its body was massive now, no longer confined to the stone chamber. "Go, go, go!" Dr. Jacobs shouted, but Ethan was frozen in place, terror locking him in the dark water. With a sudden surge of strength, Dr. Jacobs grabbed Ethan and pulled him toward the surface, ignoring the creatures screeching behind them. They swam as fast as they could, their air running low, but the creature was faster. It slashed at Ethan, sending him spiraling into the darkness, his screams muffled by the rushing water. Dr. Jacobs fought against the current, but she couldn't escape. The creature's claws pierced her leg, and she gasped, bubbles escaping her mouth as pain shot through her. The creature's jaws snapped shut just inches from her face. It wasn't just hunting them, it was feeding off their fear. In the last moments of her life, as the creature's claws closed around her throat, Dr. Jacobs realized with chilling clarity that the civilization she had sought to discover was not gone. It had simply evolved, and now it was awakening. The ocean had always been a prison for this ancient being, but the storm had brought them to the edge of its release. The cave, the altar, and the orb had been a trap all along. Hours later, the storm subsided, and the surface of the ocean grew eerily calm. The team's boat drifted aimlessly, abandoned and empty. The ocean, still and silent, concealed its dark secrets once more, waiting for the next unwitting souls to discover them. And somewhere deep beneath the waves, in the ancient, dark caverns of the sea, the creature watched, waiting for the next time the surface world would open the door.